Call the meeting to order. Our first item is our pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, please read our mission statement.
The mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
We need approval of the agenda. Motion to approve. Do we have
Second.
a second? Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Public forum, now's the time the public can approach the board. Moving on to our presentation. We're very excited to have our fiscal year 19 audit. Welcome.
Well, my name is Tamara Dietz. I think I've seen most of you in past years, but I'm a manager with Hoffman and Brobst, and I'm here to present the audit report for Marshall Public Schools, fiscal year ending June 30th of 19. The district received an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion on the audit, what you want, so congratulations on that. So what we'll first go over are some of the fiscal year 19 highlights of the district, and they are the following summarized on this slide. As the district completed the year, its governmental funds, which include the general food service, community service, building construction, and debt service funds, reported a combined fund balance of just over $11 million. That is an increase of approximately $2.26 million from the end of the prior year. Most of that is due to the district's conscious effort to control expenditures, some staffing changes, nominal salary settlements, and deliberate efforts to control or reduce all energy and other costs. So you guys do a really good job of looking at your budget, balancing your budget, trying to control your expenditures, which is very hard to do in this day and age. So along with that, there were increases in the state aids due to an increase in enrollment, and there was also an increase in the general education aid formula this year too. The food service fund had an increase, which contributed to the overall increase. That was mostly a reduction in food expenditures. Community service fund increased primarily due to an increase in funding. The building construction fund seen an increase, and that was due to issuing the facilities maintenance bonds and not having any expenditures for that yet. The debt service funds also had combined increases due to retaining debt levy excesses. The district received a number of grants in the fiscal year. That included the 1819 safety grant for the middle school and West Side School locations. In February of 19, the district issued $1.53 million of general obligation facilities maintenance bonds, and those will be used to finance projects included in the approved 10-year facility plan. Technology equipment with an approximate cost of $362,000 was purchased via a capital lease in the current year. And we would also like to congratulate the district for receiving the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the fiscal year 18 year. As we look to the district's future, some great things on the horizon. There's a 2% increase in the formula for general education aid again in fiscal year 20. This has been kind of a consistent thing over the prior years, but basically what this means is even if your enrollment stayed steady, you would still see an increase in revenue. So, which that really helps any district in trying to balance budgets and dealing with inflation rates and things like that. And then in May of 2019, the district was successful in gaining the approval from voters to issue general obligation school building bonds in the amount not to exceed 29.8 million. When those are issued, the proceeds of those bonds will be used for a school acquisition and betterment program. Looking at the district enrollment, this graph will show fiscal year 18 and 19, so the past 2 years, and then also the district's projection for 2021 and 22. So we see a increase in district enrollment for the next few years. 2022, why you see a little bit of a decrease here is there's voluntary preschool funding, and that is only guaranteed or funded through 2021. We aren't really sure what will happen with 2022. So the numbers in 2022 don't include the voluntary pre-K kids. If they did, you would also see an increase in that year. So we'll hope and cross our fingers that they keep that program going, because that's great for many districts. The graphs that we'll be taking a look at in the next few slides are looking at the general fund, excluding transportation and operating capital. This graph is going to show the general fund balance in red, and then the adjusted cash balance in the blue. So as you can see, over the years, the fund balance has increased. There was just a modest increase here from 18 to 19. And then along with the increase in fund balance, we normally see an increase in your adjusted cash balance. From 18 to 19, that did decrease. All of that is just due to timing. So you guys had a large increase in receivables, which will decrease your cash balance because you didn't get that cash. That will come in after the end of the fiscal year. So nothing to be alarmed about there. As a side note, the total fund balance for the general fund at the end of 19 was about $5.76 million. That amounts to 19.5 of the district's annual expenditures, and that exceeds the district's fund balance goal of 8% of expenditures. So we like to see exceeding goals, and that kind of gives a little cushion. These two graphs show the general fund revenue by source. So 19 is up at the top and 18 is down at the bottom. Little pie charts here. So Excel coming into play. You can see the largest source of revenue is going to be from the state, so that's in the blue. That runs normally around 80% for most districts. Federal sources of revenue, which are in the orange color at about 3%, they are going to cause most of the compliance requirements. So depending on federal funding, that's what will trigger a single audit for a district. This graph is just another look at your revenues by sources, but it's going to show it over 5 years, so 15 through 19. And then each type of revenue is represented by a column there. The green is the state revenue, so you can see year over year, your state revenue is the majority of your revenue. The increase over the 5 years, that's due to enrollment increases and then the increase in the general education aid formula. And then as we move to expenditures in the general fund, these graphs will show expenditures by object. Again, 2019 at the top and 2018 at the bottom. In any school district, we would expect to see your salaries and benefits, so the red and the yellow pieces of the pie, to be your largest expenditures. Your goal is to educate students. You need the manpower to do that, so you have to spend the funds in order to have the teachers. And then this graph is going to show those expenditures over the last 5 years, again with the columns for each type of expenditure. So the blue is going to be your salaries and wages, and then yellow is your employees and benefits. You're going to see this increase. That's not only from salary increases, but your enrollment has increased significantly over those years. So you need increased staff in order to cover that. If we wanted to take a look at the areas or programs in which most of the expenditures are attributable, this graph depicts that. So each program is down at the bottom, and the colors represent the last 5 years. So 2019 is in the yellow color. And we're going to see that regular education instruction, which is the third over, and exceptional instruction, which is the fifth over, are the majority of your expenditures, or the programs where those expenditures go. Again, that's what we would expect to see. That's your instruction costs. So, the rest of the other categories you can see are consistent year over year. So, fund highlights for district funds other than the general fund are as follows. Your food service fund revenue exceeded your expenditures, and the fund balance in food service increased about $42,000. The fund balance increase is due to several factors. The main one is there was a decrease in revenue because of the school days with all of this lovely weather we've had this past year. So there was a decrease in revenue there, but it also decreased your food purchases because you didn't need to have food for those days. So that was the main thing in the food service fund. The food service fund balance at the end of the year is about $367,000. Your community service fund balance increased about $182,000. The main reason for that was there was more received than expected for adult basic education and for your summer program funding. That was able to help offset additional costs for salaries and benefits and some purchased services. And then there was also a decrease in supplies and other expenditures. At the end of the year, the community service fund balance was about $577,000. The building construction fund had an increase of about $1.58 million, and that is due to the proceeds from those facility maintenance bonds, partially offset by bond fees. There were no expenditures going out of that yet, but next year there will be, so we'll see some more activity in that fund next year. The debt service fund balance had revenues and other financing sources exceed the expenditures by about $402,000. The increase is due to levying for the CUSAB bond payments, and then those are set aside in an escrow account until those bonds mature. You also retain debt levy excess, and then partial proceeds of the facility maintenance bonds were put in this fund too. At the end of the year, the debt service fund had $1.3 million in fund balance. The OPEB debt service fund, this just had a modest increase in fiscal year 19, which is consistent with prior years. At the end of the year, this fund had a fund balance of about $25,000. And then the OPEB Revocable Trust Internal Service Fund had a net $43,000 of income on the investments and paid the general fund about $72,000 for employee benefits. At the end of the year, this fund had a net position of about $933,000. So that concludes the overall view of the district's audit report for fiscal year 19. We do want to say a big thank you to Dion and Russ and the other staff. The work that they do and have to go through to prepare for this audit is a lot. And we just really appreciate all of the work that they do for us, all of the questions that we ask, and they come back with answers quickly and are able to research and give us educated answers. So we thank you for that. Any questions or comments?
Sound like a good report then, huh? Sound like a good report.
Yes.
That sounds like you did a much better job than Zemesco.
I don't know about that, but,
I'll tell her that. though, okay?
okay, sounds good.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
Moving on to our consent agenda, do we have a motion?
Second.
Please vote. It is approved. Board forum, board members, anything you'd like to bring up? Moving on to our SWWC Board of Directors election, everybody needs to vote today.
Tricia, do you have the ballots? You have them?
Can pass them out, and I think
Sounds good.
everybody's voted, I believe, so.
Thank you.
Second review of policies. Did anybody have any questions or highlights that they'd like to bring up? Moving on to our action items. Our first action item is authorization to solicit bids for the addition and renovation of Parkside Elementary and security upgrades to the high school, Parkside, and the Maytech facilities.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. It is approved. Board members, thank you. Meeting's over.
It?